On July 26, 2023 to order. So welcome everybody. First thing we'd like to do is have a roll call. Council Position 1, Joe Armand.
I am here.
Council Position 2, David Budrus.
I am present.
Position 3, Stephen Hardy.
Present.
Position 4, Chris Moritz.
Here.
And Position 5, Levi Shank. I've heard nothing from Levi today, so we'll wait to see if he shows up. People in the audience who would like to be recognized for this event, please state your name.
Karen Allen.
Jerry Allen.
Okay.
Tim Kempa, 4th and Willis, downtown Harrington.
Thank you, Tim. Come in and have a seat. Any additions to the agenda tonight?
Yeah, I have a few. One regarding the, what do you call it? Not the gazebo, but up at the town park.
The grain.
Greenview.
No. The upper park.
Oh, the burger stand?
Yeah, the burger stand thing. I got a point about that. And then I'd like to talk about budget and garbage.
Okay.
I have nothing.
Okay, without further ado here, we have a special guest tonight, Andy Tom from J.A. Sewell, and he's going to give us a presentation on what the future plan is for our sewer wastewater treatment plant update. Andy,
First, I
the fl-
have these dispensed. There are 4 of them. Just thought there only needed to be 2.
Well, that's fine. We don't need, everybody doesn't need a copy of all of this at the moment. We can reproduce this, but for the meeting here, how many we got? We got 4?
I've got 4.
Why don't you go ahead and...
Okay, I'll dispense them.
Yep.
The reason I'm here is because there was a bunch of misinformation being disseminated, so I asked Jess if I could come and talk to him. He said, you know, what would be even better is if you could come next week and address the questions. And I'll keep one from
Wow.
here. The 2-page, 8.5 by 11, are the conclusions from the facilities plan engineering report. And these are the ones that we're adhering to in the design with one modification, and that is putting in the, for a number of reasons, the instead of just a diffuser blower assembly in both tanks and elimination of the sedimentation tank, putting in an MBBR, which is a moving bed biofilm, moving bed bioreactor. Yeah, bioreactor.
See that real fast.
And what it is a system which is attached media, inserts, is very compact, so fits within one of the units and you don't need 2 of them. Your system was designed initially for about 132,000 gallons a day, which is way oversized. So basically, there's a lot of redundancy inherent in the original design. So this is actually is meant to make the system work better. When I started working with the city back in, I don't know, 2018, I think, one of my charges was, well, my primary charge was to write a new operations manual for the existing plant. And in that capacity, one of the things we figured out was that you were spending $300 a month putting in methanol. And my conclusion was that why take it out in the aerated lagoon, put it back into the the recirculating gravel filter, it seems like a waste of money. So the original engineering report recommended that you spend double that amount. And so Scott, I said, Scott, give it a try. And so he did, found out that the level of treatment was exactly the same. So it served no beneficial use at a cost of $300 a month. $300 a month to the city. So that was the first thing. So then you received a grant loan for a facilities plan or engineering report, which is a precursor to the construction. And we helped you apply for that, for both grant loans. And even when we started, what I told, I don't know who was the interim there at the time, but I told them, if I do anything beneficial for you, it'll be to raise your effluent limits so you can actually achieve the limits. You cannot achieve the limits with your existing plant without incredible expenditures, and it doesn't make sense for communities as small as this to be meeting those kinds of limits. You can't do it. And so I asked our hydrogeologist, PE hydrogeologist, to evaluate that, and her name is Sheila Pockernegan, and I've used her since I retired from the agency. And I liked using her because she was so easy to work with, and I thought she was very, very bright when I worked for the agency. And so she evaluated it and got the concurrence of the Department of Ecology that this system was inaccurately characterized initially through the hydrogeologic report. So since then, your permit limit for nitrate has been raised from 1 milligram per liter, which you can't meet, to 8 milligrams per liter, which you met even before any of the changes needed to be made. So, I consider that the most, the best thing that came out of the facilities plan. In the meantime, as I had evaluated your system through the operations manual and the facilities plan, we identified a number of items that were causing you a lot of heartache and penalties over the years. One of them was they asked you for biological nutrient limits, an analysis of that, and I basically told them that is not as important as an evaluation of the entire system, because the nutrient limits can be met with the existing system with some modifications. You had 2 thin-lined, you have now, partially mixed lagoons that operate, I think, either primarily in series, primarily in parallel, but anyway, they were single-lined, and the original engineering firm installed a leak detection system underneath, which causes you guys a lot of maintenance and a lot of other headaches. So that was one of the things I wanted to address. And also, like I said, it didn't make sense to me to have 2 lagoons when you probably only need 1. The biosolids, the other engineer at the end of the project, I think, back in 2011 or something, installed the swirl concentrators, which are not wastewater process units, but are instead stormwater process units. So I took a look at that, and it didn't seem to be of much benefit to the city. Not only that, because your Vector truck was always in the shop, you couldn't clean it out. So I was hoping to be able to take it out, and you guys agreed that it'd be a good thing to do. So that's part of the construction as well. I remember one thing. When we started, you're getting this existing project funded totally through a combination of ecology money and CDBG money. CDBG stepped up during our negotiations and simply said, we'll pick up the local share. Part of the reason that happens is because both the college and the Department of Health got, I think, $145 million to spend over a 5-year period. And CDBG did not get much of that. I found that Public Works Trust Fund also has some, but they're not so generous with their funding, to be perfectly honest. So basically, the scope of work is this. The swirl concentrators are going to be removed. Rotating fine screen, which is self-operating. There's on page FS3 is a profile of the unit. I've installed a number of them at different installations. And on the left-hand side, underneath, you'll see a garbage can. What you do is you insert a 32-gallon plastic bag in there and check it every other day, and it dumps everything into there. Then you just put you just close it up, and it can be taken to a landfill. You don't have to go through the biosolids process with it. So that's very advantageous. I've heard nothing but good reviews on this process. The next thing was the preliminary settling basins, as they were called. For some reason, they're designed okay, but there's no sludge removal mechanism. So that means Scott had to, I think, put the backhoe in, use one, dump the other one into and it was a stinking mess, basically. So it didn't make sense. Plus, there was always hovering over the system. The threat from the biosolids people at Ecology of what are you going to do with this? So, it's something that would have been pretty expensive. You'd have to get a screen and a proper carrier, and get buy a permit and things like that. So it'd be another costly thing for the city. So what I decided to do was initially put a diffuser blower assembly in there. The problem I envisioned was, I wasn't sure how this was going to happen, but I talked to Scott and I said, do you have issues now because you come from the aeration system, the lagoon system? I should get you. And if anything, just interrupt me if you have any questions, if you don't understand where the units are. It's something I work with all the time, but if you guys don't understand, just say, I don't understand, where is this? And instead, somewhere after the original approval of the engineering report, I was going across some literature, and I saw the MBDR, which I like. Moving bed biofilm reactor is what they are. It's an attached media system, usually little discs. The reason I didn't recommend the little discs is there's a caveat in every one of the reports I've read where they say somebody will lift the screen accidentally. Then you'll have 20,000 of these little discs in your downstream unit. And I said, that's not something that City Harrington wants. Then I was looking over some literature and I found the NTEX. They're NTEX. I think they've been out here. That's the unit you guys are going to get. It's got this film. It's got this wavy and I think I sent you information. It's in a. Take a look at sheet. MBDR1. And again, these are in MBDR2. These are preliminary plans only. And what they are is modules that are put into your system that will do simultaneous nitrification and denitrification, which then enhances the amount of nitrogen that goes out in your effluent. And this system is well proven to lessen it without much, additional work. And that's one of the other concepts I was really attracted to with this. It doesn't require a lot of hands-on, like a lot of other systems. Person with ecology talked to you about clarifiers. Let me explain to you.
Can I stop you for a
Yeah.
second? You said any time, so I'm gonna stop you.
Okay.
Life expectancy of these MBBR modules and replacement costs.
They said 15 years.
Okay, and
They're stainless
replacement
steel.
costs?
I need to get back to you on that, but it was pretty reasonable, and I think the information is in some of the correspondence I sent back to you. I just don't remember. You move on to project from project to project, so.
Okay,
But it was amazingly reasonable, and these are stainless steel frames.
Okay.
So, said,
Question,
yeah,
what does amazingly reasonable mean in dollars?
I don't, yeah, it's in your guys' information.
Can you guess?
10,000 a unit,
and there's 4 units in there?
3.
3 units.
So, here's one of the issues with the MBVR. I had earlier read, and I reread excerpts from a publication, and what they said was one of the issues with the MBBRs is because it's primarily stuff that sloughs off the attached media. The good thing is instead of the 3,000 parts per million total suspended solids you get out of an activated sludge plant, this one is only in the hundreds. Plus they're smaller because it's stuff that sloughs off. So they said sedimentation of these can be a problem. So conventional, if you look at most systems, what they're followed up with is some kind of algae type upflow filtration system, not a conventional clarifier. And they're not that effective. So as I was looking at your design, I said, you know what? When I eliminate the lagoons and eliminate the 2 lagoons and replace them with one, the same size one, because it's all you need, it's going to be double lined with an internal leak detection system. The first part is going to be, I don't know, I think a hydraulic residence time of only, I think it's 130,000 gallons. Your flows are like 25,000 gallons a day. So it's 6 days HRT, which will help, and it's not complete mix, so whatever can get in there probably will settle in the bottom of the not completely mixed system. At the end of it, I put a 1-day hydraulic retention time partition because most of the literature says that out of systems like this, the aerated lagoons, it's primarily algae that gets into the pump station in this case. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do that so there's probably not much of a chance for a lot of sediment. And when I had earlier talked to Scott, I said, do you have a lot of trouble with sediment in the pump stations? He says, no, never had trouble. So I took that to mean that, with this, with the precaution of this type of design, it probably will not be an issue. And initially, I was going to put in front of everything, I was going to put a grit chamber or something like that. And Scott said, why are you doing that? You don't have a grit issue here. So that's why I didn't put that in. That's why I thought the back to the head of the plant, that's why I thought the fine screen was a better idea for the city. Okay, so then, out of there, it goes, after all of that, it goes into the, it gets pumped to the recirculating gravel filter. The person from ecology asked Jess, and asked me, what is that? I said it's primarily a low-tech system, and I think that person even asked why I didn't take it out. I said, because it'll cost millions. You guys don't have the money to take it out. And it provides a service, because in the literature, and when I was with ecology, although it's gravel and not rock, a lot of the technology as they analyzed lagoons for rural communities was that the interstices between the rock, I'm not sure how much you have in the gravel, are little mini settling basins. The beauty of your system is if it plugs, you use 6 out of 32 units. You just go over to the other one, dry it out, and then by the time, you know, it'll dry, you'll have it for settling, and it'll provide some sedimentation, some removal of solids, especially the biological solids. So I think you have a lot of redundancy in the system. Finally, with the MBBR, if nitrates are going to be the issue, with the MBBR and the recirculating gravel filter, and finally, my initial calculations on the lagoons and the wetlands, although I don't think there's a lot of fluoride in that, but even with either or, you get a lot of denitrification in those units. So, I mean, and you know that from experience and from usage, you get when you had all kinds of problems with the treatment plant, you still were getting nitrogen removal in the lagoons and the wetlands, because that's the nature of them. So, anyway, then finally, the last change I wanted was to change the weir assembly, because the literature for recirculating gravel filters is that you should recirculate more, which makes sense. The more you recirculate, you get removal. And then if you make it more dilute, by recirculating most of the wastewater over the rocks or the gravel, and you continually recirculate and only discharge 1/4 instead of 3/4, your removal is going to be better. And that is actually the extensive research that's been done. So anyway, so that is kind of a summary of what we're planning on doing. A couple of other things disturbed me about the conversation that I had on the phone with, I don't know if that's the ex-permit manager or what is going to happen. I had a long talk with their supervisor. He called me and he apologized. And then he said, I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to. No. Anyway, he apologized and said, you're not going to have to deal with this anymore. So, and also a couple of ecology engineers called and apologized too. Anyway, so that's how things came to the current situation. I don't know what the situation is with ecology. They don't have enough people. And they think that with the glut of money they're going to have when they raise the rates, because the legislature raised the amount they can charge for municipal permits, they think they can hire more engineers. The problem is the kids don't want to do this. They're looking for the money right now. And consulting pays a lot more than the state. So I don't know if they can fill the positions. I don't know if they're going to be stuck with who they have in terms of permit managers, engineers, or anything else. So we don't know. I appreciate all the support I've gotten from the various administrations and from you guys. I recognize some of you, over the years. And I hope you think, because it's true, that I'm trying to do the best for you guys. And like I said, I'm always accessible. I think you guys have my cell number. And so, I just, as I thought about it more and more, at first I wasn't so upset. But over time I started to get more and more upset. Especially when people started calling and apologizing to me.
Andy, I got a couple questions. Number one, who around here in Washington State has this system, if any? And then
The MBBR?
yeah, and then
They don't have this specific system. Most of these, the company comes out of North Carolina.
that's
I
right.
talked to the head, he's a PhD at Chapel Hill. Sharp guy, I like talking to him. And the person coming up is going to be Lauren Takich. She's an engineer there, and if you want, you can always call them. They have a lot of literature. They just presented at the, they had a conference last year, and she presented for the firm. And she wanted to come out here too, take a look at the,
Huh.
but I don't know if she did. I know she talked to the ecology engineer, Kim Prysock, and because she visited her exhibit, and they talked, I guess, for a little while about that. But the MBVR technology was invented by the Norwegians about 30 years ago. It's very extensively used now because it's compact. The solids generated, which is always a problem in wastewater treatment, is not extensive. It's a lot less. Like I said, the mixed liquor coming out of the particles coming out of activated sludge plant are 3,000, 4,000. If it was an MBR, it'd be 10,000. But this one is probably in the hundreds. And I think with what you have in the existing units, you should be able to actually take care of the solids without having to really do solids handling. The last thing you really want to do, and if you can possibly avoid, is solids handling.
Right. Well, I know, I kind of remember from one of your other presentations, but will this in any way eliminate the frequency of monitoring or reporting?
You'll have to ask ecology.
I mean, it's supposed to reduce our maintenance.
Yeah, it'll reduce your maintenance. The monitoring, for example, yes, it will. You no longer have to pull samples
Yeah.
from the leakage system underneath, and they were gonna make you do a lot of biological assessment, nutrient removal assessments. That you won't have to do that anymore.
Okay.
But as to the frequency of other monitoring that you'd have to do anyway, I was talking to Casey Monge, your operator. She called me too. She heard about some flap that happened, so she said, I want all the details. So we talked, and in the midst of that, she said there are some issues with, I forget, pH and stuff like that. And I said, why don't you just, I don't know, through this grant, but talk to Cynthia Wall and ask her if you can do some add-on, some remote monitoring that could be purchased with CDBG. And I think Cynthia was pretty happy about that. Oh, okay. Cynthia just sent that to you?
No, I got this 2 weeks ago from Casey Monge.
Okay, yeah.
But I talked to Cynthia this morning.
Yeah. CDBG has been so supportive of this, as has ecology in most
This
cases.
is a chlorine monitoring system,
Okay.
and we don't have a chlorine
Yeah.
problem, nor do we
You
chlorinate
you
our
don't
water,
chlorinate.
so
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
this is raising a flag right now to me.
Well,
I gotta tell you one thing right now, the misinformation and disinformation, I don't think anybody in this room knows anything about
Okay, then
that,
I won't bring
other
it
than
up.
I.
Yeah, I won't bring it up anymore. You guys
My
can discuss it.
whole
after I'm
reason
gone.
for wanting you here is because being an owner of a piece of property in this town,
Yeah,
we are going to once again embark on a wastewater treatment plan, which we did 11 years ago, and we're now paying still handsomely.
there's,
And I don't want this one to go out for bid, because to be quite frank with you, Andy, I have no idea which pond you're gonna take out.
Okay.
I've never seen a drawing except all of the ones from 2011.
okay, here's the
So
drawing.
we're in the 10th inning right now, and this is going out this year for bid.
Well, here's the thing. You have to make these improvements. Okay, you can't meet, well, you probably could meet the limit, but you're gonna continue to have operational issues unless you make the changes. The pond that's gonna be replaced is the one furthest away from the MBVR.
That'd be cell 2.
Okay, so we're gonna keep the one existing pond right,
But first, they're both gonna be, the liners are gonna be removed.
okay,
The sludge is gonna be removed. You're gonna take the aspirating aerators and move off to the side. You only need one set of them, so you could sell them to somebody.
one set of what?
Aerators, the aspirating aerators.
Okay,
Because they're your property.
yep,
Then, we're only gonna need one because, and that will then also provide you with, if you need to do maintenance on the MBBR or anything else, you'll have an alternate biological system operation. But then again, you have the recirculating gravel filter. With your system, you may not even, honestly, you'd be taxing the limits, but probably the recirculating gravel filter probably operated along with the wetland lagoon probably will meet your limits. The biggest, like I said, the biggest thing that was beneficial in the engineering report was the limit got raised to 8 parts per million. Actually, more than anything else, because you meet that limit now. But what I was specifically addressing were the issues with maintenance and the costs of maintenance. So that's what I wanted to address. So basically, nothing changes other than it'll be easier, I think, and the narrative in the report addresses this. It'll be easier to operate. The more troublesome operating units are going to be removed. And so your people, you know, are you the operator?
No,
No.
thank God.
You know, it'll be fun. You guys need to go out and just take a, there's not going to be a lot of operation, but the MBBR will be really neat. It's just this wavy fabric that goes in there. And
So the 2 ponds that we have right now where you're gonna put the MBBR, the cement,
in the
we're
cement.
gonna clean both of those out.
What? Yes. And then I have a question for you. There's 2 units. You only need one. The MBBR is a very compact system. We're not sure what you guys want to do with the other one. It's dangerous not to cover it. The other thing is to demolish it or fill it with gravel. The only other thing, and is we want to make sure it doesn't float. And we want to make sure that when the rain gets in, you know, it doesn't create a stinky mess. So you guys need to think about what you guys want to do with that unused one, which is the
How
one.
big are they? Or what?
They're the 2
Is this
big
the west
square,
one and the east one's here?
they're probably 12 by 30 long.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the
So
east
this
one.
one is
Directly
big enough?
north of
The west one?
Yeah.
the north pond. You'll see 2 big squares. I don't know if you see that on the. They show up quite clearly on MapSifter.
Oh, you're talking about
Where the
wetlands?
MBBR is going to be in here.
Yeah, right there.
And you're saying the second one we need to fill. See, these are the questions I have.
Yeah.
I have never got answers to any questions.
Well, we're gonna, you know.
And I'm a hands-on kind of guy. So I want to know what it is we're going to do here.
Yeah, so, well, this is the decision the council has to make, is what you guys want to do with that.
What are our options?
Yeah.
You can cover it and use it for some future use, storage equipment, stuff like that. Fill it full of gravel so it doesn't float. Put a couple of holes on the side of it, which make it unusable unless you plug it for future, depending on what you want to use it for. I don't think, here's the issue. Your original plan, like I said, is designed for 6 times your current flow. You're not going to need it for for another MBBR. You're not going to grow 6 times your current population.
How much growth will this give us?
Do I?
How much growth would just the one give us?
This one is probably good for, I think, 45,000. You'll have quite a bit of growth.
Okay.
But the thing is, we probably can recalculate stuff with all the other units you have, because the MBBR, as I'm concerned, is one component. It's not the limiting component in terms of design. The
So-
lagoon itself has, you know,
Are these above ground? Or are they buried
Below ground.
below ground? right?
below ground, but here's the thing. So I put in an application, I didn't put in an application, I sent the information to Jess, because you need an application, a permit from the county, because the treatment plant is not in city property, it's in county, it's in the county. And so that's what I think that person was looking at, and with incomplete information. I think she never read the report. I think the only thing she looked at was that summary.
So that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
the two that are side by side?
Yeah. The one to the north is not gonna have anything in there.
This right here.
And it's
The big-
60,000 gallons.
The big pumps that are located just to the north of those obviously come into those tanks. How would we seal
Big
that
pumps.
off? The big pumps that are right above it, probably 5 feet above there, those 2 huge pumps, those are the swirl concentrators.
Oh, no, those things are being removed. They're not pumps.
So they're not
They're just,
two
storm concentrators
separate
are
one with two
little,
compartments.
you know, they're stormwater, what are they? They're stormwater screen things you put in, you know, there are no pumps in there. You guys had to bring your Vector truck and vacuum them out. So, no, there are no pumps in there, but those will be removed. The other advantage is you don't have to deal with the biosolids thing, because whoever you hire, you know, will summarize the information. And we'll have to get the permits and everything else.
Okay.
So you guys don't have to deal with the biosolids and ecology. That's my understanding.
So you just hire a septic person to come get it?
Yeah, the contractor will handle that.
And then they
Get the
dump it
permit.
across the road like they do now?
No, they can't, because I hope not.
This stuff looks like ground up marshmallows.
What class of sewage would that be considered?
I mean, the septage?
The stuff that you draw out of it?
You know, I don't know, because I haven't really studied what you guys have there. All I knew is we have to get rid of it.
If they use a class B or C,
What is it? Isn't, oh, it's been a while since I did the biosolids stuff.
So according to Art Carpenter, we would have to build a cement, like a huge tennis court with a raised up area so the fluid would not drain out. We would suck that out in our Vector truck, put it outside, let it dry.
No, no, he's talking about sludge
The sludge that's out of those,
No, the contractor will handle that. It might register as, you know, like you said, as a dangerous or a hazardous waste at this stage. I don't know. But it's gonna be,
according to Art,
hopefully,
as soon as it's dried, it could be sifted and then,
well, it has to be screened. There's a protocol
Screened.
they have.
yeah.
And I'm hoping it's not something the city has to do. It would be in the morning setting.
Me too.
I'm hoping the contractor would.
I was asked last week to use our vacuum truck, and I said, absolutely not. We will not suck that out and dump that on the ground.
Who was asking that?
Not gonna mention any names in this meeting.
Why would anybody? Anyway, so that's the situation. There's something else. I was gonna ask you. Oh, Kevin wanted to know who's going to be the contact person for the city when we go into construction, which I'm hoping is next year. We hope to go out to bid in January. Well, yeah, go out to bid in December and January.
Probably
It's usually
the
the best
mayor.
time.
Whoever's mayor at that time.
Okay. Okay, what are your names again?
David?
Oh, you're David.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'll be somebody else. you want.
Who's running now?
Joe Armand is on the ticket for mayor. That's this gentleman here.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah, I talked to him before.
Yep. Yes.
so you figure this is kickoff January 2024? Yes.
Well, there are a lot of uncertainties. I've gone out to bid twice before and
That's the
had to
earliest.
come up with, no, here's the situation. I don't know if the contractors got such a glut of money from the pandemic,
Yeah.
but their bids are incredibly high now. And I'm hearing that from all the funding agencies. I've heard of bids that were expected to go at $250,000 that are like $2 million or multiples.
So they're kind of gouging, is what you're saying, a little bit?
Yeah, I would think so.
Make up
We
for lost time.
we went out to bid down in Basin City, and I had pre-purchased, going through bid for the remote reading water meters and the equipment, because I figured, oh, I don't want the client to pay the extra 15 or 20%, carrying fee, and I wanted to get the best price possible, and so we did. And so I expected that the installation only was going to be, you know, 3,000 maximum. It came out at 5. You know,
Okay.
years ago you could get the meter, although it wasn't a remote read meter, the meter and installation for like $2,000. So I'm very afraid of the bidding climate these days.
How long can we kick this down the road? I mean, till it
No,
settles
what,
out?
the agencies know that that's a problem. They'll probably come up with the money. Because I heard them almost throwing money at projects because they just want to get them completed. So I don't know what's gonna happen. I
And
really,
the contractors
I'm
know.
very fearful. I've got a stormwater project up in Meadowing Falls. It's supposed to be under $1 million, and I think it's a reasonable design, and I'm just afraid.
I think that's the one you presented or you talked about.
Oh, I did.
Previous meeting with Meadowing Falls.
Yeah. Sometimes that's why I have 2 projects with a private developer, and he just selects his people, and he tells them take it or leave it, and if they need the work, they take it. And they do pretty good work. I just, you know,
So if the funding is not generous, what are our recourse options at that point?
it will probably be generous. We have to be positive about that. You don't have the money if they aren't generous. And it's a very worthwhile project. You rate it very highly in the ratings.
Right.
And so I don't imagine that they're not gonna come up with the money. And you're 100% funded.
Right.
So I think both agencies are gonna do whatever they need to do to get you the money. The reason I like those 2 agencies versus some of the others is because the finance offices don't treat it like it's like their own money. Some do,
Mhm.
you know, and it's real hard to deal with them.
When that goes to bid, when does the dirt begin to fly after that?
Well, I think it's like 3 months after we award. It has to go through the process of making sure, a lot of stuff will be done beforehand, but, you know, gotta make sure, what do they say, that,
Could it be more than a year?
no.
The duration, you mean?
Oh, not.
Before you got action?
Oh, actual start?
Yes.
No.
Less than a year?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
5 months, 4 months, 3 months.
Okay.
Usually the contracts will run out 3 or 4 months after the award. So, yeah. On one project, I can tell you right now, it's funded, Public Works Trust Fund. They treat it like it's their own.
Well, Andy, what's the duration expectancy of it?
You know, it'll be done by the end of the year.
Oh, okay,
This is a pretty simple project,
okay.
you know. The only shortcoming is gonna be, I'll call Lauren and find out what delivery's gonna be. They supposedly have this done. She's the engineer with NTEX. I'll find out.
Is it the parts themselves or the
Hmm?
parts and equipment?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of like the meters, you know, and one guy said, we can't start till next year because of brass.
Yeah,
So, you know, these are the things you worry about now, supply chain stuff. You know, it's real frustrating when you got a real good project.
okay.
So this aeration pond right here will be gone, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be
Is this the drawing from the 2011 project?
probably part of it, just replicate it and put in there, yeah.
Okay.
And so you guys need to think about what you want to do with the other one, with the other unit, the UBR, the north part.
Is it worth anything? I mean,
The concrete,
is it, okay, so.
It's
we're
a,
talking about
it's
getting
a
rid of the
swimming
aerators.
pool, David, a big one right now.
Well, you know,
Half-court basketball.
It's,
Kitty
it's a
swimming
big
pool.
hole in the ground.
and you probably get $5,000 per aspirating aerator from somebody. You
Is
know,
there anybody that you know in need or a project that's coming up?
No. I'm putting in the 2 systems I'm doing right now are.
And how would we find a buyer for that? Because I doubt putting it on Facebook Marketplace is gonna draw.
You
Put it up for auction next to the fire truck.
Well, you know,
You couldn't sell that would you?
Oh, yeah, you can sell it. They're
This
15
big cement piece
Oh,
that's
no,
in
no,
it?
no, 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 the aspirating aerator.
The aerators.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
the
yeah.
aerator.
Yeah, I
So
think
we're
they're
talking
15, 20,
3,000 or 4,000 bucks?
Yeah, 5,000 maybe, you know. I don't know, I don't know. I tried to, for Meadowing Falls, I tried to buy I was calling all over and trying to buy a street sweeper.
Yeah.
Got a great price. Then the guy retired and the city decided they wanted to keep it. Caldwell wanted to keep it. It was a $500,000 street sweeper. They were gonna sell it for 60 or 70 grand.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
We'll trade them an aerator and a concrete
Yeah, that's right.
swimming pool.
Anyway, I was real disappointed because that would have been great, but when we put in the stormwater system, it would have been great if they had the unit, they could sweep up while we were building, you know? No, but the guy's a real nice guy. He said, I'm really sorry to tell you, we're not gonna sell it.
Well, I got another question for
Sure.
you, and you touched on it. But how frequent is our will a Vector truck need to be used on this?
Not at all.
Zero, okay, that's what I thought.
Is it usable? I mean, every time I talk to,
Well, it's usable once it's fixed, and then,
every time I talk to Scott, it was always in a repair shop.
yeah,
How is Scott, by the way?
I'm okay.
Yeah, I recall the Vector truck need being a prime consideration.
That's what I was, yeah.
Because one of those costs
No,
$750,000.
these are
right?
still there.
Yep.
These are
And a
the
used one that
seven-
costs $50,000.
These are the
It's
two
always in a
very
shop.
you should buy.
We know.
I did this today. This one's here, and this is the big swimming pool, as I call it.
The benefit is we don't have to pay for parking.
This
Exactly.
is where the,
So
MMBR
we've
will
got to
be-
get the permit from
And the
the
second
county.
one,
I don't know,
this is
I
like
sent all the
16 by
information to
30 or
Jess.
40, they're big.
I haven't
huge.
called, what's her name? She seems real
So
nice.
that'll
on the
have
phone.
to
I don't
be
know.
filled, covered.
Huh? Courtney, yeah. Why don't one of you guys call her and see?
No, this will be
This isn't the
gone.
Department of Health, this is,
It's
No,
no, it's the
it'll be filled
floodplain.
in.
It's
It'll
in
be done.
the
We won't have
floodplain.
that one. We
what is
have
her
one
title?
pond.
Anyways,
County planner.
I've got it written down.
it's not the health department. is it?
No, she's with the county,
Yeah.
county planning. Has she contacted you?
Not
Courtney?
lately.
Because I sent her all the information. But I didn't follow up. I need to.
Well, it's okay, you're talking about the permit process, once we get that, do you foresee any snafus with that? That
Because
should
the
go.
wetland, we had an issue with the wetland, but the ecology wetland person said, you know, there's still wetland out there. So he said, I'm gonna send you an email saying there's no problem. So that was really clear. And then Courtney might have said, I think it was her who actually said, I don't want to be the one that stops a worthwhile project because of, you know.
Yeah,
And here's the thing, what I told her was, I believe, although we couldn't find documentation, and ecology couldn't find it either, but I said it was a USDA-funded project, and they have to go through the NEPA
Do you remember
process.
that?
So the floodplain thing had to be taken care of, but we can find no
Specifically?
documentation. But I assume
No.
with the elevations here,
I've been under Paul, so.
without the calculations and
I
everything
believe so.
else, that
And a lot of that we
everything
just
is-
get
all it has to do is if you get
brief
the
update
100-year
every
flood,
once in a while as to what's
that
going on.
the unit, process units are protectors
Yeah,
from physical damage.
Mhm.
And I think with the top of the dikes, the top elevation of what used to be the sedimentation basin, everything is above the floodplain, and it'll be protected,
The last 100-year floodplain.
the 100-year. See, and the thing was, FEMA never, it would have been so easy. I was talking to John Gallo with CDBG, and he said the interesting thing is they designated it a floodplain, but they never supplied the elevation. So it's not so easy
Okay.
to figure that out. So it would be easy if they said, okay, the 100-year flood is, you know, this elevation, 2022 or something, but they never did.
huh, that's kind of,
Yeah.
So
it makes it
maybe
more
our
difficult. It makes it more
our
difficult.
influence meter,
What?
the influence meter where the water's coming into the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah?
Do you know where that is?
Nope.
It's actually on this man's property. We have an easement.
Okay.
It's probably 100 yards away from the rest of the plant.
Okay.
Is there any way that we can get that moved within the confines of the plant?
You have to talk to the funding agencies. You know, my charge was, and I don't wanna expand, I don't wanna get in trouble with the funding agencies. We use them quite a bit. I don't wanna start saying, yeah, they need this. Wasn't part of the scope of work, would you do it? But if you guys asked, it's kinda like the metering, you know, the remote metering. If you guys can ask, and probably wait until next year, because I really don't want to stop the other guys from trying this out.
Would it be easy to move after that project that you talked about is completed?
Well, I don't think I don't know, I haven't looked at it.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know, I can't tell you, I don't have information to tell you that. But anyway, that's kind of a summary, and I hope, I think this will save you money operationally, as well as just a nuisance of ecology, writing you guys and telling you,
Right.
you know, for all these years.
Well, this will be more of a state-of-the-art.
I don't know if they,
So, yes or no? Is it experimental?
no, none of it's
Okay.
experimental. It'll work, but it's meant to fit within your system,
Right.
because we've got, you know, it's cost effective, should be very efficient, and it'll work, and it'll be cheaper for you guys to operate. I think I made a statement in there, it will provide you the means to operate for the next few decades.
No more $10,000 windmills
No.
floating around out
No,
there.
no.
And
I
you
don't
mentioned
miss
the
that.
maximum this would do per day?
You just
Approximately?
played games
Oh,
like that
oh,
for years.
I think-
Our
Is that
expense.
45,000?
Yeah, I think
Well,
that's
it was
what I
8,000, I
think
think.
the
It was more than
MBBR is sized
Actually,
for.
still go out
But
there
the
with a
entire
little robot
plant
and check
itself
on
can
them.
handle any deficiency. Because remember, a lot of these other units, including their circulating gravel filter, are sized for 135,000 gallons a day. So between all the different process units you have, you can probably operate above that, but, you know, that wasn't my charge. It gets too complex,
Mhm.
in my mind, for me, to evaluate all this.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, got any questions? You guys have my cell phone number, you can always call. But I know the previous mayors always used to call me at once they got off work at 6, they would call with questions, which is fine. Any other questions? You can always come by visit, you know, if you got questions.
I'm in Spokane twice a week. This is obviously part of the overall plan.
Yeah, this is the facilities plan.
Okay.
We haven't really changed that.
Has that been printed in a copy given to the mayor?
Oh yeah, you guys
for-
have 2 copies, I think.
Okay.
And it's also on the ecology website. So,
Okay.
and like I said, the only material change is substituting a diffuser blower assembly, taking that out to put into MBBR, which is a better system, better unit, and anyway, and cheaper to operate and will produce a better quality wastewater, especially very specifically address sludge and nitrogen.
Cheaper to operate is always good.
Our biggest expense will still be there, and that's the $3,400.
The reporting.
Yeah,
You mean the repayment of the loan?
no,
No,
we
the
have that too, but
obligations from the Department of Ecology with reporting and
Oh,
babysitting
yeah,
it.
yeah.
we
Well-
need a wastewater treatment plant manager, an operator. So that's one of our biggest expenses right now.
And that doesn't go away.
I was kind of hoping if it reduced some of the levels, nitrogen, nitrates,
They might back off a little.
then it would back, give us a little bit of a little more breathing.
How often do
room.
they require your effluent nitrogen? How often do they? Monthly?
Once a week, don't they?
Yeah, they go in there and they do sewer samples once a week, supposed to do pH levels 5 times a week.
Well, if you have a remote read thing, that would be a lot easier, but the nitrogen is once a week?
Well,
I can't
couldn't tell
answer
you the
those
truth,
questions, that
or,
would be,
tell you for sure, but there's tests being done.
Yeah.
And it might be part of it, but it's not really say, when we get the bill, I don't know, you'd have to ask the clerk if it says for what was done.
Yeah.
Just get this bill.
Well, the
My
thing is,
son will
I
today
know
Anatech.
that in the past, if the results are consistently within limits,
Mm-hmm.
then they often will
Back off.
back off some.
so if you looked at a DMR report, would you know?
Yeah, better, your permits be better.
Okay. I don't have a copy of the permit
Yeah,
here.
I could look it up. It's on the internet, the repair system. I used to do all this stuff in technology, so. Writing permits, NPS permits, state permits, like yours, engineer review, stuff like that.
What's the DMR stand for?
Daily
Discharge,
monitoring.
discharge monitoring report.
Okay.
Those are what we send to Anatech.
Yeah.
Those are the one that Casey says, that she's looked at them all, and then we send them to Anatech.
Good luck, baby.
Sure. I don't need it somewhere. Okay.
I'm glad it's you, not me.
Any other questions for Andy?
I'm good.
Good job, Andy. Thanks.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you for coming down.
Thanks for
and-
coming, Andy.
Well, I appreciate you guys hiring me, I guess, since 2018. It's been a
Never
fun
knew there was so
project.
much to know about you.
And,
No kidding.
Well, I think you give good cookies around Christmas.
I don't know. I quit being in charge of that because they were too took too much time. But anyway, again, you guys have my cell phone number, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to call.
Okay.
And I won't pick up the phone before 8 and after 6:30.
Fair enough.
Reasonable. Sounds good. And you're just in Spokane, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I changed my schedule now, and actually it's more productive. I spend my first 3 to 4 hours at home and work.
Good night, all.
See you, Tim. Thanks for coming.
And then I come in for like 4 to 5 hours in the afternoon to the office. If sometimes I just don't. It's actually, I spend a lot less time wasting time.
Yeah. Was there another town around here? I know there was Medellin you talked about. Was it Stengel, Sprague?
What?
Was it another town that you were doing similar?
Harrington, Medellin Falls. We did Uniontown years ago.
Mason City?
Mason City, but that's a water system well and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I've got another, I'm designing a pressure drain field and pump station, and actually kind of fund some collections, previous engineers' collection system, and put in 2 small lift stations.
Okay.
Eliminated those, gravity. The owner was real happy. Although the health department hasn't approved it yet. Well, they probably will. And then another RV park down in Kennewick. Oh, Crystal Mountain, the ski area,
No.
Crescent Bar in Grant County. Then most of the Cluterian systems.
I thought it was closer than that, but I might be mistaken. It might have been something else. They were. But nevertheless, this should go off without a hitch, right?
I hope so. Like I said, the only thing I'm concerned about is the bid, the bids.
Well, that's something that is a formidable concern.
Yeah.
Okay,
But I'm good, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Andy.
no more questions?
none at the moment.
Okay,
Andy.
take care. You got my number if you have any questions, you know. Oh, just feel free to call, and I know, I don't charge when you guys call unless you keep me on for 2-3 hours.
Okay.
Long weekends and,
Okay,
okay,
thanks you guys, and
Andy.
thanks for hiring us and, you know, being good clients for all these years.
Thanks for coming.
I
Have
gotta
a safe
get
trip.
up at 3:30. He's not gonna take a call at 3:30.
No? He doesn't get calls from me at 5 AM either. But I usually don't wait till late to call him.
have a safe trip home.
Thanks again, Mayor.
Okay. Next thing on the list, to approval of the minutes from July 12th.
Move to approve.
Second, well, you're first.
You got it. Okay, well, second.
Don't fight.
I'll yield to David.
So we got a motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of accepting the minutes as written?
You're fine.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same? Minutes are accepted. Next thing on the list, approve the claims.
Move to approve.
Second.
So we got a motion and a second to approve the claims as written. Further discussion?
Yeah, a few questions. TD&H, is that the residual payment off of the water thing under the tracks?
Yes.
Okay.
That's an A19 that we were given money for, so that's the revolving door. The money's come in and now it's going back out.
Gotcha. HD Fowler, isn't that where we get like water meters and
It
such
is,
parts?
that is the bill for 2 meters and all of the boxes that we bought. We bought 3
Right.
sets of boxes to put the meters in, cement boxes.
Okay. So 3 boxes, 2 meters.
Yep. Those things are extremely expensive. All that stuff is now. Well, now it's not 3 boxes, it's 3 sets.
Mm-hmm.
There is like 6 of them, some of them deep. Some of these meters are not
Oh,
neat. Look,
Right.
the one at other side next to the tennis court. I've totally lost his name at the moment, but that was 4 boxes deep. So
Okay.
you just keep stacking it up, otherwise you can't put the meter or the top lid a foot below the ground.
right.
So are those stacks, are they
Yes.
literally being ordered per use,
Yes.
per designation?
We order one that's called, the bottom one is called with mouse holes, what is exactly what it looks like.
Okay.
Where the pipe comes in through the mouse hole, and then you stack them up, they're all solid. Then the top one, you have to get one, it could be 12, it could be 9, depending, you stack these up and then order ones till you get the cover up to the ground.
To the
level.
ground surface, or the level with the ground. Okay.
And when, as we replace these meters, some of them have had pipes. So every time we replace something, we do it properly. We're paying back. We're paying it forward, I guess. We're taking care of past sins.
Decobbling the cobbled together.
Yes, yeah, I don't need to tell any of you what
It's
that's
like
like.
indulgences.
Nope.
Nope.
Is that sarcasm, Steve?
But yes, that's what that is, the HD Fowler is sewer.
Okay.
I figured that's always kind of been what it has been, but I was curious. I'm good now.
No further discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting the claims as published here, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same? Excellent. The next item is to observe the check register from July 12th. It actually says 7/13 on there.
Well, this is a notable document. It's the largest check register we'll probably ever have as a city.
Yeah, it is a good one.
$500,000.
Yeah. But that, from all sounds of it, that was a good move. So we've already approved these, so we don't have to
Yes.
approve them again. We just have to
Just
observe
look at
them
'em.
and
That's correct.
look at them and smile.
Yep.
Which ones are, is this the one for
13.
7:30?
Yeah.
I guess the only question
One after that.
I have is like Anatech, the first one, transaction 595.
Okay, Anatech?
Yes, and it says water testing. What water? Is that drinking water?
Drinking water,
Okay.
potable water.
Okay. And then we have the Killington County Health, and then, yeah.
Anatech does, you'll find more than one bill in there for Anatech, because they also do the sewer wastewater
Okay, so
testing.
yeah, 610 down at the bottom of that page.
And
take
we had a
450.
discussion last meeting, it was in the minutes, about the bill was a little higher than normal.
Well, the only question I have is when we write it down,
Yeah.
are we talking, in the past, we had an issue, or at least I did with it, is that when they call it water, they were calling sewer water, everything
Right.
water. I'd like to distinguish, is it wastewater?
Or
sewage,
potable.
Or whatever, or potable,
So
that was my
Anatech
only-
periodically, not as frequently as the wastewater, but they periodically do a test on our potable drinking water.
And that's the more expensive one, I'm assuming.
So the water testing was $1,557 for testing our drinking water? It just says
If-
water testing.
If I remember from last 2 weeks ago, it was a couple of wastewater tests and then a water test.
I would have to get Donna to pull those out to tell you exactly what they are, David. And break it down, and we can do that if,
Well, just moving forward, it's not, it's just for future reference.
You're talking about just making the classifications of.
Which
Yes,
is water,
potable
which
and
is sewer.
Right. Well, you pay Anatech, is that for the gray water, or is that for the,
yeah,
Yada, yada,
and that's the man-readable part on the right-hand side. That doesn't come from them, that's just as this list is prepared. Instead of putting waste, it says water only. So I'm sure we could make a differentiation when we do that.
it's just kind of like the same thing when somebody calls up, hey, I got a water leak. And
Yeah.
you go up there, run up there with your water stuff, and it's actually a sewer water leak.
Yeah,
Sewer.
got it.
So, other than that, that's good. It just,
We're ready to move on?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. Next subject on there was AWC sent out a class, or presented a class, is having a class on budgeting. And Joe asked if that was something that somebody else might be interested in, and I would think that would be council people who would want to attend a class like that.
I looked into it, and because we had just got done with a budget workshop, I didn't know if anybody was interested in.
It's a fair ways away from here, so you're gonna be gone to Leavenworth.
It's overnight. The
Yeah, a month from
class
now.
or seminar or whatever, I think is
11th of August?
$350.
Yeah,
for
it's
the
not
2
a cheap
days.
class, but
It would be, I think, Thursday and Friday. It would be Thursday afternoon and Friday morning, which would mean an overnight
Stay.
there or in Wenatchee I wouldn't stay in Leavenworth to save my life if that was the issue. I'd rather drive back to Wenatchee than to stay in Leavenworth, but that's just me. I can't go, just to clarify. I just thought I would throw it out there.
I probably would normally be the one to do that, but with what's coming up for me in the near future, August 10th and 11th are not good timeframes
Yep,
for
you're
that.
not gonna volunteer for anything else in your household at the
Not
moment.
if he wants to live.
I think that's probably a wise decision.
Um,
There'll always be another year for that.
Yeah. I mean, I have gone to one of these before in 2020. It was a 3-day online thing because 2020.
2020.
And I would say that I hope that Joe's report about some changes at AWC make it more applicable to us. And were it not for the events that I have going on in my life, I would go to see if it has improved. But all I can say is in 2020 it was not small city focused.
So would you classify it kind of a waste of time at that point?
I have not chosen to go back thus far, but I understand that organizations can change, and I respect that Joe, having come back from that meeting, said that they're looking to make themselves a little more applicable to smaller cities, being that didn't you say the AWC president is Lori
I was referring
Kinnear?
to 2020.
Oh, I had it. She sits on the Spokane
yeah.
Council.
So I'm not,
Like is-
don't get me wrong, I'm not saying these things will always be useless, because the one that I went to, like, I felt like I got about an hour out of 3 days. Like, they're
That was
talking
actually
about
applicable.
how to manage your budgeting staff going through the budgeting process was a whole, I'm like, organizational between all these people. I'm like, this is not for Harrington. So, but that was then. And if we just always ignore something going forward because there was a bad instance in the past, we'll never be there in case it gets better. So I am supportive of us going again sometime, but this year it will not be me.
I don't see on here, is it available by Zoom or whatever?
You have to
other-
attend in person.
This is an in-person attendance. Yeah.
Middle of August, I don't see you going.
So my reason for putting that in the agenda was just to give everybody the opportunity
Okay.
to say yay or nay if they were interested, but it sounds like nobody's available at this time.
I'm saying,
We're all looking
yeah,
at you for
it's,
Daughter's gonna be
realistically, I
here.
mean, assuming we did not get a quote scholarship
Busiest
because
month
we're a
of my
small
year.
town, we're looking at a $500 or
Okay, for school.
$600 expenditure to send somebody there and feed them and put them in a hotel room overnight, plus the cost of the time. So
That's when I start panicking.
I would be willing to venture that maybe within the AWC webinars that they have posted online, we might be able to glean as much information if somebody has time to sit in their living room and do that. One person's opinion.
I would concur with that.
Thank you for bringing it up, though.
Yeah.
Next thing on the agenda is to plan the move to the building, the bank building. We haven't talked about that at all, but I think it's something that definitely needs a plan. There's going to be some heavy lifting involved, and I don't know, ma'am, how many people in this room are gonna partake in that. I'm sure I will try and wind up the same shape that I usually do when I do that. I won't be able to walk straight for several days, so there's not a lot to move, but there is some.
Are the desks going?
Well, I believe this one's going, and that one's going, and that credenza, or whatever you
Okay.
call it over there, is going. The file cabinets will be probably the easiest thing of all.
Right.
They'll go on the dolly, and I think rather than trailer them, they could be rolled
Just
down
roll it
there.
right down?
I think we can probably use the young man from, who works for us,
Mm-hmm.
Casper.
to do some of that kind of work.
He's got the
There
strength
will
for
be
it,
some,
that's for
there
sure.
will be some heavy lifting. I mean, there's more here than meets the eye.
Mm-hmm.
you know, we're gonna have to sit down and figure out, I guess, what's gonna leave this building
I'm looking at the width of those and looking at the front door.
and when it can happen.
Bring a chainsaw.
Obviously, the biggest hurdle is gonna be these two desks right here have to be moved probably over a weekend and set up and be functional. So that come Monday morning,
Everything's ready to go.
it's ready to go. That doesn't include myself, but those two actually have a lot of work that gets done here during the day. And it can't be a week-long
Are you referring
process.
to Donna's desk?
Donna, right.
Well, that
Both
one
of-
goes to the dump, right?
Well, not the desk,
Uh,
but the hardware and software,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is some of your situation, and I know you're going to be busy. I guess the first thing we haven't really talked to, and
Becky down.
I haven't spent a lot of time with him, we don't know how soon we're gonna get in there. So some of this could be done over a couple-week period, except the moving, once those desks are up, the moving of the IT part.
So I spoke with the landlords today, and they said that their message to the council is that people have been working in there quite consistently, and they think that they're very close to being on track for the first still.
First of August.
1st of August.
Okay.
They can't promise it, but they are making a big push, and they'll be close, is what I heard.
And we're not ready to move on the 1st of
No,
August.
but access.
But
to start.
during the month of August is when this is gonna happen.
So I've put some thought, it's ultimately to the mayor, but I was thinking kind of along those same lines that we could take the month of August to get stuff moved over there and prepped up, make sure Donna is comfortable with the way the cubicles are set up and arranged.
Yep.
And then once we have that blessing, then yes, it shouldn't take more than a day to move computers and setups and get those relocated.
So
And
is
since
there
I took
things
apart
that
the
have
bloody
to be
things, I'm
done
planning on putting
right
the cubicles
before
back together.
anything else, I would think there is. For wiring or some,
So, as long as we have internet, and that is something that I'm confirming with them, but I believe we're aligned with this, is that as soon as we have internet, everything else electronically should move fairly easily.
plugins is not a problem, no power issues, I mean,
Well, we'll have more plugins than we do.
we're not
here.
gonna do what we're doing now
no.
with.
So I've got to get the interfaces, but those cubicles can be wired. There are plugins in the baseboard, and up halfway, like at the desktop, there are outlets built into that system.
Nice.
Okay,
But one thing I wanted to ask is of you and Donna, what are some things that are important to the two of you guys in the move, or how you see it going?
for me, it's not gonna be an issue. I don't see an issue. I mean, I can work with the laptop,
Mm-hmm.
but my daily thing is, although I'm plenty busy, I don't need the hardware that they do.
Right.
She needs all of her equipment set up. Both of these desks are going all day long, every day.
I'm just saying procedurally, or any type of requirement, anything that's important to you that the council should consider in the move process.
Well, I don't know, the next thing I was getting to was, well, after we planned that, was the security part, whether, you know, we had talked about it, audio, we've talked about cameras, we've talked about all kinds of things. So, I know that I've heard rumblings that they would not like to feel as though they are being surveilled. And I don't know what our camera, from my point of view, cameras were to be, I don't know how to say it other than to watch for bad guys. We're not trying to watch the people doing the work. We want to see who
Look
comes
out
in.
for the people who are working?
Pardon me?
I said we're trying to look out for the people who are
That's
working?
correct. I'm not concerned about surveilling there all
Right.
day long. I'm concerned about the person who's coming in the door
Right.
and where they go.
Fair enough.
You know, I mean, that would be my concern.
And who has access, who monitors it,
Yeah,
where it's
who
stored?
had, exactly,
stuff.
who accesses that, who has the capability of monitoring it. I think that's something that we need to be careful about, that sort of thing.
Well, in a bank setting, let's say, or normal, like a business like that, they have surveillance or cameras, let's say. Who is it, the bank manager that's in charge of that? Like the mayor be in charge of this? Looks at it,
I'm not sure.
cleans it? I mean, is it
I
a
can't say that at the
Wi-Fi?
moment.
Is it gonna be hardwired, like tape just records 24 hours and loops and
Is
erases?
that the way it does? And we can pull those up and look at them, or they get stored,
So if there
probably
isn't a,
not dumped, or,
On our little network attached storage device over there, the little black box.
We can turn it over to the police.
so if there's an event, you could go back to it.
Yep.
okay?
Other than that, nobody's would care or even have any business looking at them, right?
Right.
Pretty much, I would think, unless you can tell me why.
It's not like we're gonna be doing a 24-hour live stream on YouTube.
Right.
No.
Right. It's what I guess, it might speak out of turn, but
clerk would have access
it's
to
a
that.
security in case of an event. It will capture that event.
At
Yep.
the front door, basically.
I'd
Right.
be careful with the audio. There are some legalities involved with the audio.
Well, I don't know if there is audio.
No,
That's
that's
a question. Is
just
there
what I'm
audio?
saying. That was pointed out to me
No.
the other day by someone, that there are legal things that can be tied to the audio.
Well, I know people ask me, people have asked me, am I gonna be on camera all day long? If I pick my nose, is it gonna be on? If I do, there's things you do that you might not want. I'm sure you wouldn't wanna watch what I do all day long.
Well, if you break a wind or something.
I don't plan on watching you.
No,
Everybody.
but I'm, there are legal aspects about this that I'm not sure that we want to do that, or if, I don't know what's been thought of. So I guess now is a great time to air that.
And I guess,
What it is we're planning. I thought we were gonna have a camera that was facing where this meeting was going to be placed.
We have the camera there.
Okay, and that's going to cover the city council meeting part of it?
Well, so in my view, if we move over and the camera's not working on day one, that's fine, because there's no camera working in here now.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to say the camera will be here because I don't think we know where anything's going to be for absolute certain. So I think, to me, the reality is we're gonna have to get over there. We're gonna have to see what works,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna see, okay, now that desks and what have you are in their quote-unquote final locations, where is the right place to put the camera?
Sure.
So there's a couple ways of thinking about it, in that at a minimum, it can serve as a security camera, and just like you could point it at the door, like the U.S. Bank, they had a little height thing right by the door, so that they could also get a height measurement from people as they went through the door.
Pass through.
And so you could just point the security camera at the door and do nothing else. That would be like the minimum. We had talked about, after certain events more than a year ago, about questions where people had asserted they had given the city money and we weren't able to track that. We talked about making sure that the transaction of money was always filmed, so that we had a record of funds received to say, yep, they did walk in and they did hand the money to us and leave. So there could be a view where we make sure that it can see the door and the desk that people would interact with.
so now you need a casino camera.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
And ideally, if we talked about potentially getting a second one that could face a different direction, and it could have a utility for us to have a different view in our recordings of meetings as well. Like, for instance, if we oriented ourselves to have like a camera angle facing us, then we could have another camera shooting down in case people get up to speak. But that would be a later thing. So those are the three things I've thought about with the camera: securing the door, securing money transactions, and then possibly being used for our recording setup.
I got a question, Stephen, for you. Does anybody know, is the owner of the building plan on any surveillance or security cameras installed anywhere on the premises?
I haven't asked.
Or that has not been addressed?
I would imagine the ATM probably has one built into it,
Right, right.
as most do.
Have you spent much time looking at this, you yourself?
The month of August?
Yeah.
I bet you spend a lot
I
of time
mean,
looking at it.
obviously,
In regard to.
I'm quite sure it's like this, right?
Yeah.
It's a slot machine or whatever. You have no idea what's going on here, really.
I can say that in the discussions that I've had with my wife, we've had quite a number of people who have offered to be supportive, and she, at least in this state, she has asserted that she is supportive of my efforts at the city, and so I'm not going to put everything on hold through the month of August. I have to leave room for the possibility that something could come up. There could obviously be a medical issue that could come up, but if we are in the range of normal, whatever normal is for August, I'm going to try and still be meeting all of my obligations. So
Okay. So I guess the first thing that has to happen is 2 cubicles got to get put up.
Yes, so,
The two that are
Yes.
up front and,
so, I'm just gonna throw it out there, because I've thought, how do we do this without killing ourselves, and without abusing our clerks and all the rest of it? So I kinda had in my head that we could use August to get stuff moved over as needed. And if it came down to things weren't just getting done, we could use Labor Day weekend to do the final push and get everything in, so after Labor Day weekend, we were live and operational at the,
So use August as your setup month.
right, because the cubicles are heavy, so let's say we set them up with our best intention of where we think they're gonna go, and by the time they're built, they don't work. I've seen it happen more than once, and we
course.
need to, they're not just gonna pick up and move as
You
a
have to tear
cubicle.
'em
You're gonna
down.
have to partially take them apart and move them, and it will take time. So I'm just trying to put enough, in my head, I'm trying to pad enough time so that we're not feeling,
sounds
oh
like we're
crap, we've
talking
gotta
about
get this
getting in
done.
there, truly in there towards the end of the month next month.
I'll make cookies.
Okay?
Yeah,
Cookies are always good.
And I'm all
One
in
of the
for
5 major food
all
groups.
you know.
No, I'm not.
I have a suspicion, I can't speak for, but I have a suspicion I know where I can find a fair amount of some labor. So there's a group of people I can ask that I think would help. So
People
Okay.
know your money.
So if we schedule a
leverage.
couple days to move larger items, I don't think it would be just us.
The last week has been rather crazy around here.
Can
And it-
tell.
And it hasn't been that much different than every other week around here. This last week was a different than it was the week before. It wasn't sewer or water last week, it was another thing that occupied everybody's time. And there's still a couple hurdles, so,
But also, before we move on, Don, do you have anything specifically that you feel is a primary consideration for you?
One of the things that we talked about was if we have a cubicle wall, it would be really helpful if there was a mirror up high on
A
the
mirror?
other side so that we could actually see who's coming in.
Right.
a convex mirror,
Right, yeah.
because they're gonna be looking over a,
Did they take them out of there? They probably did, though, at the
I
bank.
don't know.
Because there used to be some in there, weren't there?
Yeah, yeah, they did.
So maybe this
Good
is
idea.
not something that we wanna spend a lot of time tonight, maybe we wanna have a special meeting on this. Seems like the first thing's gotta happen is 2 cubicles gotta get set up.
Okay, so I would propose then a week from today, let's have a workshop in the space.
Sounds good.
And we have access.
Well, we can
We'll make sure
cancel
we have
it if we
access.
don't have access,
Okay.
but, I mean, if they do end up delivering on the 1st, this would be on the 2nd, so,
As soon as possible,
yeah.
as soon as able to do it.
And is it realistic, Jess, do you think that we can just move all of those panels and equipment and everything? We packed them on pallets. Do you think it's realistic that we can get a forklift to just pick them up and drive them down there and set them on the curb?
I don't know if those pallets, well, I don't know if we stacked them in such a way that they're meant to be moved.
We did, but we could lash them down.
Yeah,
Talk to us.
yeah, I think we could get a forklift.
Okay.
There's a couple tractors in
It just-
town that's,
It would-
and the public works guys can help with that.
And they can, they can sit out there overnight, weather providing. I doubt it's August, for God's sakes, so
Only the 10th is supposed to rain so far.
that's
Okay,
a
I'll start
possibility.
looking, I'll look into that, because we're talking next week now.
So I will commit this, assuming that we are in there and we have the space, the first weekend of August.
So Wednesday the 2nd, we're going to have a workshop in the brainstorming thing.
Yeah, and we could also do some assembly while we're thinking, right?
If it was there.
Sure.
Yeah.
If it's there.
Yeah.
And again, this is all tentative. We'll know as we get into early next week whether
Dad still hasn't.
whether they're planning on.
Tim's are going to
you know,
start
when
when he's
they-
driving for
Okay.
this year. For West Side.
Okay.
And for that matter, we could probably meet there,
He says it was last week.
even if it's not ready for us. I'm sure
That's
it's
true.
well enough that we could actually meet there to look at the space again.
Sure.
So will
Reacclimate.
you, well, are you speaking about bodies to help put cubic, I don't know.
Not
if-
for Wednesday. I'm talking about like when we start.
I don't know if you want anybody helping put those
You want a
cubicles
planning
together.
stage, right?
Yeah.
There is some parts of that too much help is not a good thing.
No, yeah, exactly. And
I guess maybe we
I
have to work on the
remember-
first one.
some of them, you picked them up and panels went flying off all over the place, and it's
Sounds like
quite the
Cluster.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I know you're
Something
booked,
missing from
this
that.
is your busiest time of the year. Yeah, so,
Mr.
Okay.
Monrose tells me he
We'll kinda work
rated when
on
you
that.
come in here to talk to me.
and I think I'm not gonna worry about the audio and the camera, that sounds like we don't even know where we're at then. Although I put it in here, I just put it in here as a space to talk about it.
I'm not even sure the camera has a microphone in it.
Well, you know, it depends how sophisticated we want to get, and granted, we're on, what we're talking about is live around the world now, but in my opinion, you know, like at the door to see who comes in, if it's a security thing, possibly, but to shadow the clerks, or, you know, the office, admin part, I think would be unnecessary at this time.
I agree with you, David.
But the big thing is the monitoring and control of it. I think the office, the admin folks should be in control of that to monitor
Being the
it.
mayor and the clerks.
Yes, as far as the looping the tapes and reviewing it, I don't think it needs to be published on the web anywhere. Or, you know,
Like
I don't
Mike,
think that's the intention.
incidents are bad enough with people who spend their life in public
Mm-hmm.
places and are trained and
They
think
still
about it
manage
every
to
day.
slip up and say
And the
things.
rest of us don't,
Yeah.
so we shouldn't be listening to everything we say all day. You'll hear things you don't want to hear.
Well, I think
And see things you don't want to see.
That's correct.
Working alone.
a security,
Or whatever.
it's something for security, like if an event
Yes.
actually happened.
Yes.
Like, but definitely at night when, or weekend, when the place is locked up, you know, to monitor break-ins or a mouse climbing on a desk tearing up, wire, you know, whatever, that is fine. But, you know, every day to day, you know, I think Harrington, for the most part,
Okay, how long of a meeting on the 2nd? I think we can set a time frame on that one.
hour.
How long do you think it takes to assemble a unit?
I don't want to get into it on Wednesday night.
Oh.
Tell you what, if we happen to have them there on Wednesday afternoon when I'm working in City Hall, if I have an opportunity to fiddle fart around and try to figure out how to fit them back together, they came apart difficultly enough because the tolerances are really, really tight. So if they go back together, maybe we could, but I don't think that's the best use of our time.
I was just thinking, usually putting screws in something, people can kind of talk while they work, but
It's got these cams that have to go into a metal gap, and then you have to twist them into place.
So I'm staying
and
far away from Joe while he's working on this.
It's
So you don't need anybody interfering and past turn when you're doing that?
well, once
Or one person
that's
does.
done, then some of the panels, some of it's just an open frame that then you have to clip panel into, and that part's easy. But the biggest challenge is going to be putting the frames on, getting the desks put, making sure the clerks are okay with that before we
Finish the job.
put all the
Would we be
lipstick
able
on.
to scoot those around once they're together? Could they be put together a foot out from the wall and then?
I wouldn't mind moving them maybe a foot or so
Yeah.
gently without
An
scrapping,
inch at a time, we can
scratching.
wiggle
Yeah,
this in.
but I wouldn't
Anybody
wanna-
have those moving pads or discs?
that's what I was just
We'll
thinking.
talk about that after the
Yeah.
meeting's over.
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
library
This is what I
report,
do
I think
for a
we're gonna
living.
pass that off tonight. Why don't we do the clerk's report right now before we go off onto our extra agenda items? Are you ready, Donna?
Sure.
Okay,
Okay, the majority of city funds have been moved to Wheatland Bank. We're waiting on 4 outstanding checks to clear US Bank. All ACH payments, both debit and credit, have been changed to the new bank. We are set up for positive pay with Wheatland, and that means that we will receive a call before any debit ACH is paid.
yeah.
Our new claims have all been written, the ones that you've approved tonight, have all been written on Wheatland checks. Springbrook has been updated, and all the deposits are now going to Wheatland. I thought that the transition would need to be careful and slow, but once we got started, it seemed like it all had to happen right away, and it did go pretty quickly. Reconciliation of the June US Bank account is complete. And as soon as I finish July, we should be able to close at least one of the US Bank accounts. And we can talk about the ability to close the second.
Of 3, right? Because there's the in, the out, and the investment account that we.
There's actually 4, but,
Oh.
so I'm talking about the 2 main ones.
Yeah,
We
okay.
would probably close the outgoing money one, and then, the first one would follow. There's a process to all of that. The US Bank Visa card was cut up today. We were happy to do that. And after this next payment, we'll be done with it. Wheatland Bank Visa card arrived today.
Awesome.
So that's all I have tonight.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Good job.
I don't have anything for a mayor's report tonight.
We kind of covered that as we went. didn't
Yeah,
we?
we've been going as we go, and many things we're gonna leave.
Just additions?
A park, there's an event, you were talking about a tent at the park.
The burger stand thing. There's a name for it more than anyways.
Gazebo?
Oh, you're
Or-
talking about the covered area up there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the kitchen type
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was at Hot Dogs in the Park, and I was made aware that it was vandalized. It didn't sound like it was paint, but it was some red material, quite colorful language, more than just the red material there. Fortunately, we had a dedicated citizen who cleaned it all up before I was even made aware of it. But I wanted to notify the council because that's something that had a citizen not stepped up and done, this would have been our responsibility to maintain the property and get it all clean. It's one of those things that I think that people underestimate where some of our time can go. They think it gets all spent on the infrastructure and everything else, but maintaining properties and cleaning off
Was it just a matter of cleaning it, or was there
It sounded
painting
like,
or any?
no, whatever they used was not as staining as paint. So it sounded like it took quite a number of hours, but it all scrubbed off. I was in there looking at it, and she was like, yeah, it was there and there and there, and I couldn't have told you where any of it was. It all looked perfectly clean to me, but
Is that the only thing that's been roughed up there?
as far as I know. So I just thought we should be aware of it, because it might not be something we think of happening very often in Harrington, but thank you to that citizen, you know who you are. And so that was that point. And the other one is
Budget.
not a big discussion for now, but we kind of paused on things with the transition to Wheatland and everything else, but we do need to get on top of a budget amendment. And we've had our discussion about garbage, and I think we need to commit to that. So I didn't want to have this be like a get into the weeds, do an action here, because I honestly didn't know we were going to be even as far as long as we were on the Wheatland thing, and I didn't want to do anything that would add more to anyone's plate with that transition is more important than a budget amendment. But it sounds like we're getting closer to the point where we could do something like that, and I just want to give a heads up to the council that I would suggest that maybe if I don't know if the next meeting is too soon, if we still got other things that are significant, other items, maybe the meeting after, but we should have a we should have a meeting, I think, where we try to put together a budget amendment and we look at adopting the new garbage rates. I don't think we want to leave that. The other reason to get it done pretty soon is that'll happen in August.
Where's that picture of? Sorry.
So I'll finish up with this and I'll just turn that over to Jess for that point. But if we get a budget amendment done in August, this should really help us be in a good position to get a new budget done for next year, coming into the end of the year. Since I've been on council, we've never touched budget things like past February, which makes it always very hard at the end of the year. So this would be a great time to get ourselves squared up and then have things fresh in our mind when the end of the year comes around.
Isn't it?
So that's all I want to say.
Yeah, but isn't there's, this is the
This is
railroad,
across the street.
railroad
Is that all of
tracks
our
right here.
additions there?
This is the street that's right over
That's
here.
the
I'll bet.
only two additional
Isn't
agenda
that where Bailey's
items.
live?
I would move to adjourn.
Well, no, we're not done yet.
You're right.
Sorry, Councilman Shank, but it's not, you're not up yet.
He's autistic.
Figured it was worth a shot.
I think that's, but I don't know if that's where the stuff came
Is
from.
that
So can you put a date to that?
You know, it's time to put
I
anything
would
else.
I would suggest
We're looking, the second, we're already gonna have a little meeting, ninth is the next one.
I would say putting this into our regular, either our next regular meeting or the one after, at your discretion, Mr. Mayor.
At the end of August, yeah?
Yeah, whichever one you feel has a light enough agenda that could accommodate that kind of discussion. Because I don't think we need to do it immediately, because we still have some time, but it is something that, if nothing else is really highly pressing, we should probably get through.
There's another item that we need to bring up and put in here, and that is we need to put an end to our emergency status
Yep.
that we enacted.
Okay.
We were asked about that today, and that doesn't have to happen tonight, obviously. But it's one thing, and I'll dig up the one when we opened that up, and that was just to make it available to us when we called a state of emergency. It made things available to us that weren't available without being in that condition. And now that we've solved the water pipe incident, there's only two little things to be wrapped up there and have nothing to do with serious items. It's time to put an end to the state of emergency.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, do you know what all that entails, doing that? Is it a long, lengthy
I
process?
think it's just passing a resolution.
Okay.
And it can be a resolution, not an ordinance.
Right,
Or
a resolution.
And it came up in a conversation this morning, just to clarify, that if there happens to be something that's outstanding like a bill that comes in later, or some
Yes.
weird thing, it doesn't prevent us from being able to still
Okay.
use that.
Yes, yes. It doesn't tie our hands in any way of opening up anything if something comes up in the next couple of weeks. So,
I'll volunteer to draft a resolution ending the state of emergency.
okay. For the 9th meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, very good, thank you. Since there's no public comments, now, Councilman Shank, would you like to introduce a
I
motion?
would move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
So we got a motion and a second on the floor to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned at 8:45. O'clock.